You've watched a dozen horror channels explode this year and told yourself it must be talent. It isn't. There's no writer's room behind most of them, no rented location, no actor on a call sheet, no editing team pulling an all-nighter. Every piece of what you're watching, the story, the images, the voice, the cuts, came out of a laptop and a repeatable process, and in the next few minutes I'm handing you that exact process. Look at a channel called Horror Shorts Party. Almost 1.5 million subscribers, and in just the last 7 days, it pulled in 1.2 million views. That's not a one-time spike. That's the normal week for this channel, month after month, bringing in somewhere between $8,000 and $20,000, sometimes more, off nothing but short, tightly written horror stories. Now do the math a traditional studio would have to do. A channel producing at that pace, with that level of atmosphere and polish, would normally need a room full of writers, a hired voice cast, an animation team, and a budget most small businesses couldn't justify. So either someone is torching real money every single month to keep this thing running, or the whole pipeline, script through Final Cut, is being generated rather than filmed. It's the second one. Every time it's the second one. And this video is the walkthrough. How to build your channel's identity. Mine ideas that already have proof behind them. Write a script that actually holds attention, generate consistent visuals, voice it, edit it, package it, and get it published, all starting tonight. Horror Shorts Party isn't a fluke sitting alone out there. A different channel in this exact space is sitting close to 2 million subscribers. And it isn't earning 4 to 5 figures a month. It's earning that per upload. Mr. Nightmare, a name that's practically a founding father of this whole genre, is still bringing in $3,000 to $10,000 every single month, years after most trends would have burned out, which tells you this format compounds instead of fading. And 2 much smaller channels, running this same AI-driven pipeline, got monetized within 30 days of their first upload. One launched August 12th, the other June 11th, both approved before either one had anything resembling a back catalog. 4 separate creators, 4 separate timelines, none of them coordinating with each other, all landing on the same production model on their own. Because the model actually works, rather than because someone got lucky and everyone else copied it. If this were a fluke, you'd expect one channel out of 100 to look like this. Instead, it's the norm across an entire slice of the niche, which is a much stronger signal than any single success story could ever be. So why horror? Specifically, out of every niche you could pick, it's one of the rare formats where a 60-second cut and a full 20-minute upload can both work off the exact same premise, meaning one afternoon spent writing gets you 2 pieces of content wearing 2 different outfits. It's also a genre that never actually goes out of style. People have been telling scary stories since before there were campfires to tell them around. It just keeps changing its costume. Urban legend, creepypasta, slow burn psychological dread, but the underlying hunger for it never dips. And it's a binge format almost by design. Someone who finishes one unsettling short at midnight is watching 3 or 4 more before they put the phone down, which is precisely the kind of session behavior that gets a channel pushed harder in front of new viewers. For a decade, the actual barrier to entry here was practical effects. A real set, a real cast, real hours of filming, and that barrier is basically gone now. What separates a channel stuck at a few thousand views from one pulling millions isn't access to tools anymore. Everyone has the same tools. It's who can actually write dread that lands, and who shows up on a real schedule instead of quitting after 5 uploads. Start with the channel itself before you generate a single frame. You need a name, a profile picture, and a banner that already look like they belong in this genre, not something you'll fix later. Ask ChatGPT or Gemini for 20 name options built around what's already resonating. Short, a little uneasy to say out loud, memorable in under 2 seconds. For the visual identity, don't hand your AI model a vague mood and hope for the best. Describe the actual look of a channel you admire, its color grade, its lighting choices, its grain level. And point that description at your own concept. Run a few variations, pick the one with no obvious AI fingerprints, and stop there. You get 30 minutes for this step, no longer, because nobody is lingering on your banner, they're deciding whether to click in under 2 seconds flat. Next comes finding a premise that's already been proven to work, rather than inventing one from nothing. which remains the single biggest time sink in this entire process. Pull 20 or 30 recent titles and hooks from a handful of channels doing well in horror right now, feed them to your AI model, and ask it to surface the pattern underneath them, which settings keep reappearing, which fears specifically. Isolation, being watched, a familiar place turning wrong, a rule someone breaks that they shouldn't have. Then, have it generate 15 new premises built on those same emotional triggers without repeating anyone's actual plot. Pick whichever one you can already picture the opening image of. If nothing comes to mind within 30 seconds of reading the premise, drop it, because that same blank feeling only gets worse once you're deep in the actual script. For this walkthrough, the premise is a woman who keeps hearing footsteps directly above her apartment on a floor the building sealed off 2 years ago and quietly stopped listing on the directory. Do one quick gap check before you commit to writing it. Search the premise, or something close to it, and see what's already out there. You're not looking for an untouched idea. Those barely exist anymore. You're looking for the one angle nobody's actually leaned into, whether that's a specific detail, a different point of view, or a setting nobody else picked. You should be able to say that gap out loud in a single sentence before you write a word of the script. Don't skip mining the comment sections either, not just the titles. Viewers will tell you exactly what got under their skin and exactly where a story lost them, in their own words, for free. A comment that keeps repeating, something like, "The part where she stopped checking the lock is what actually got me," is telling you which single beat carried the whole video, and that's the kind of beat you want to build into your script on purpose, instead of stumbling into by accident. Lock your title and thumbnail before you write a single line of the script. It feels backwards, but it's exactly the habit that separates channels that click from ones that don't, because the title and thumbnail are the actual product a stranger evaluates in under a second. Take a thumbnail that's already performing well in this space, hand it to your AI model, and have it reverse engineer a structured breakdown, essentially a spec sheet covering palette, framing, where the eye lands first, how much is buried in shadow versus shown. That kind of structured, reusable specification survives being applied to a brand new premise far better than a one-off vibe ever does. Apply it to your own premise. Generate 4 or 5 title and thumbnail pairings, and pick whichever pairing functions as one unit, since a strong title paired with a mismatched image still underperforms. Only now should you actually start writing. The script carries almost the entire weight here, because visuals have become something anyone can produce with the same handful of tools. What nobody has equal access to is the ability to write tension that a stranger actually feels. Your opening line can't be background information. "Sarah had lived in the building 2 years before she first heard it," loses your audience before your thumbnail's promise even gets a chance to pay off. Compare that to, "The footsteps overhead start at 3 every night, coming from an apartment that's supposedly been empty for 2 years. Tonight, for the first time, they stop directly above her bed. Same premise underneath, completely different result, because the second version drops the viewer into a specific, present moment instead of handing them a biography. Build the story beat by beat rather than as one continuous block. Short-form pieces usually run 6 to 10 beats, full-length videos 15 to 25, and each beat needs a concrete visual moment that ends on a reason to keep watching, not a natural stopping point. Ground every beat in something small and specific, an exact time on a clock, a particular sound an old radiator makes, a number stenciled on a door, because specificity reads as real, while vague description reads as generated, right toward one fear that keeps tightening rather than a string of disconnected scares. In the apartment story, that fear is the growing certainty that the sealed floor was never actually empty, and every beat should pull that thread a little tighter until the final beat recontextualizes something dismissed as ordinary in the opening 30 seconds. In this case, she pulls up the old building directory and realizes her own unit is the one missing from it. Read the whole thing out loud before generating a single image. It exposes pacing and tension problems in minutes that would otherwise cost you hours to fix after voice and visuals already exist. Restraint matters more in horror than in almost any other kind of writing. The instinct is always to explain, to confirm exactly what's behind the door. Fight that instinct every time, because a viewer's imagination will invent something worse than anything you could show them. Hold your one concrete reveal until the very last beat, and let it recontextualize everything that came before rather than spell it out. Visual consistency is the real technical hurdle once the script is locked. If your main character looks like a completely different person by scene 6 than she did in scene 2, the illusion collapses the instant a viewer consciously notices. Build one style plate first, a single reference image locking your color grade, lighting, and grain level, plus a clean front-facing reference of any recurring character. Every scene prompt after that reuses the same locked description in the same structure, style tag copied exactly, subject and action, camera angle, mood and lighting match to that beat's emotional temperature. If your tool offers image-to-image referencing or a locked seed, use it for anyone appearing more than once instead of redescribing them from memory each time, because that's exactly how small wording drift turns into an unrecognizable character by scene 8. This single habit, more than any clever prompt, is what separates something genuinely unsettling from a slideshow of disconnected AI frames. And it's the fix I'd point a struggling channel toward first, since it's invisible when done right, and glaring the moment it isn't. A viewer usually can't articulate why a video felt slightly off, but a face that's subtly shifted shape between scenes is exactly the kind of thing that breaks the spell without anyone consciously noticing the cause. For motion, less is almost always more, and horror might be the one genre where that's closer to a rule than a preference. A slow, barely there push toward a half-open door builds more tension than an elaborate camera move ever could, because stillness is what makes someone lean in rather than look away. Save obvious motion for the 2 or 3 beats that earn it. A shape shifting at the frame's edge, a door creeping open further than it was a second earlier, and let a slow push or a static hold carry everything else. Whisk, Kling, Seedance, Video Express, and Hailuo AI are all reasonable options for turning stills into motion, and they render differently enough that testing your style plate against 2 or 3 before committing an entire video to one is worth the extra hour. But the actual skill here is restraint, not which logo is on the tool. Cost-wise, once you factor in a normal amount of regeneration, expect $15 to $40 in image and video credits per video, plus a few dollars for voice and a few more for your AI model usage, landing somewhere between $20 and $60 total, against a traditional horror production that could run 50 to 100 times higher once you add a location, cast, and practical effects. Stay on the cheapest available tier until you've proven the format and the writing actually work, and only upgrade once real evidence tells you it's worth spending more. There's no version of this where better software fixes a script that isn't landing, so don't let a subscription upgrade become a substitute for actually fixing the writing. Against even the low end of what Horror Shorts Party or Mr. Nightmare pull in monthly, $60 a video, barely registers, but only after the writing and packaging are already working. So don't let tool spend run ahead of proof that the channel itself is viable. Voice does more heavy lifting here than in almost any other kind of video, since your audience is absorbing a slow, deliberate narration far more consciously than they're studying the visuals. ElevenLabs, TTS tools built on OpenAI's voice models, and Speechma are all reasonable starting points, and most of them have a usable free tier. Genuinely enough to get several videos published while you decide whether this channel deserves real money behind it. Audition 4 or 5 voices against your actual script rather than some generic test line, and commit to one permanent voice. Since your audience will subconsciously associate a specific voice with your channel, the way people associate a specific host with a podcast. I've run the same script through several different voice tools just to compare, and the deciding factor was never which one sounded most realistic. It was which one held a flat, controlled tone through a slow build, without suddenly sounding upbeat in exactly the wrong spot. Format your script for the read before generating, breaking long sentences at natural pauses, and let real silence sit right before your one big reveal, because that half second of nothing is doing narrative work, not wasting time. Editing is where the whole thing stops resembling a slideshow. Trim dead air, but protect your intentional pauses, especially the one right before a reveal, since cutting that silence flattens a moment you worked hard to build. Match visuals to narration sentence by sentence, rather than paragraph by paragraph, so no single image sits under 3 unrelated ideas for 45 seconds. Apply a slow keyframe zoom to your stills instead of a static hold, and use a soft fade rather than a hard cut on your 2 or 3 most important transitions. Since a hard cut reads as ordinary content, while a fade reads as deliberate pacing, a distinction that changes how tense a scene feels in this genre specifically. CapCut, DaVinci Resolve, and Premiere all handle this without issue, so use whichever you already know rather than learning new software on your first attempt. None of these techniques require an advanced tool, just applying them consistently. Keep ambient sound restrained. A distant creak or a low hum sitting well beneath the narration does more for atmosphere than an obvious jump scare sting. And resist stacking a loud sound effect onto every single reveal, since channels that overuse that trick train their own audience to brace and skip past the exact moment they worked hardest on. For the actual thumbnail, return to the specification you built before writing and generate the final image now that you know precisely what the video delivers. Shrink your top 2 or 3 options down to phone size before choosing, since that's the size your real audience actually sees. If you're adding text, cap it at 3 or 4 words, and only if it raises a question the image alone can't answer. That gap is what earns the click. One honest thing before you publish anything: your very first video will take a while, 4 to 6 hours if this is genuinely your first full pass through the whole pipeline, and that's not evidence you're doing something wrong. Video 2 drops to roughly 4 hours since half the decisions are already locked. By video 5, you're closer to 2.5. By video 10, most people running this consistently finish a publish-ready video in under 2 hours because the process has become a system instead of a fresh creative fight every single time. Most people quit around video 3 or 4, right before it gets fast, judging the whole approach by how rough the first attempt felt, instead of pushing through to where the payoff actually shows up. There are 4 mistakes that quietly kill channels otherwise doing everything right. First, over-explaining the scare, wanting to confirm exactly what the monster is and how it all resolves. Fight that urge every time. Ambiguity does more work than exposition in this genre, and the channels that trust it are the ones whose comments turn into theory threads, which is distribution you didn't have to pay for. Second, treating the script as the boring part and rushing through it to spend more time on visuals. Flip that instinct, because a beautifully rendered but over-explained story is still a flat video, and horror succeeds or fails on the writing far more than the render quality. Third, and this one costs real money rather than just time, stacking 5 or 6 paid subscriptions before publishing a single video and getting any actual feedback on whether your writing and packaging even work. Start with the minimum tool stack: 1 image and video platform, 1 voice platform, publish 5 to 10 videos, and only then decide whether a genuine tool limitation is capping your quality or whether it's a writing problem no amount of better software would fix. Fourth, chasing shock value in a thumbnail your actual video doesn't deliver on. A gory or extreme thumbnail paired with a slow, restrained story reads as a bait and switch the second someone presses play, and that mismatch shows up as a retention cliff in the first 30 seconds, quietly teaching the platform not to trust your next upload either. Whatever your thumbnail promises has to start paying off immediately. Once videos are live, treat your analytics like part of the job rather than an afterthought. Retention matters more here than in almost any other niche, since horror lives or dies entirely on whether tension holds, not on whether the plot wraps up neatly. A video with a modest view count, but a graph that stays flat until the reveal is a video whose writing worked, and that signal alone tends to earn a video more distribution over time. A sharp drop at a specific timestamp is pointing directly at a beat that didn't land, so go back, re-watch it, and figure out whether it's a pacing issue or a writing issue before touching your next script. Do this after every single upload, not just the ones that flop, because the videos that do well are just as instructive. They're telling you exactly which choices to repeat on purpose instead of by accident. This process scales sideways as well as forward. The same premise you build for a full upload can almost always be recut into a 60 to 90-second version for shorts, using its single strongest beat, meaning one solid writing session can realistically become 2 pieces of content wearing 2 different formats, doubling your output without doubling the work. And once the core system is running, It applies almost unchanged to other corners of horror. Urban legends, found footage formats, slow burn psychological pieces, even true crime adjacent stories if you're willing to be extremely careful and factual with real cases. Tools will keep shifting every few months. The actual skill, building real dread out of restraint and specificity, won't. So here's the whole system laid end to end. Identity built before anything else. A premise proven before you commit to it. Packaging locked before a single word is written. A script built beat by beat around one tightening fear instead of a pile of disconnected scares. Visuals locked to a consistent style. Motion used sparingly and on purpose. One voice held consistent across every upload. Editing that turns still frames into something that actually breathes. A thumbnail engineered to earn the click rather than hoping for it. No studio, no location, no cast, just a laptop, a handful of AI tools, and enough discipline to actually run the process instead of jumping straight to the fun part. Your first video is going to feel slow and a little clumsy, and that's simply the cost of learning the system, not proof it doesn't work. Video 10 won't feel anything like this. Video 10 is under 2 hours from blank page to finished upload, sitting comfortably next to channels already pulling millions. Go back to Horror Shorts Party for a second. Almost 1.5 million subscribers, 1.2 million views in a single week. None of that came from some rare gift nobody else has access to. It came from a system somebody ran consistently while everyone around them was still second-guessing their first upload. That exact system is sitting in front of you right now. The only thing standing between you and a finished video tonight is whether you actually open a blank page and write the opening line, or close this tab and watch someone else build the channel you just got handed the blueprint for. Don't be the one who closes the tab. If any part of this is going straight into tonight's script, hit subscribe, because breakdowns like this go up every week and you don't want to be catching them a month late. Drop a comment with the premise you're building first. I read all of them. And if there's someone in your circle who keeps talking about starting a horror channel but hasn't actually done it yet, send them this video. It might be exactly the shove they needed. Now go write your opening line. I'll see you in the next one.